After an epic struggle, we've finally determined my favorite Warframe, and if you're not aware which one that is, there's a video linked above and below. Lo and behold, we have a name proposed by the Greater Sea. I believe this is pronounced Sabha. I looked it up as it's Hindi. Greater Sea says it's very loosely Hindi for assembly, since the frame comes from an assembly of other frames. Cool. So as usual, I'll be rating this on my criteria of impact, immersion, and instruction. Impact is how punchy and cool the name sounds, how much it makes you want to get that Warframe. Immersion is how much it feels like it fits into the world, how much I can imagine this like being a Warframe name, and in the current version of Warframe we have. And instruction is how much it tells you about what the Warframe does, or gives you an idea of what to expect. So let's begin. Impact. Well, I like this name. I think the thing I like about this name a little more than the other ones that have come so far is it feels it's kind of related to immersion, but it feels kind of like different, but in a way that is needed in variety for Warframe names. Like I feel like it doesn't feel like any existing Warframe names, but anyway, the immersion is going to be a 5 out of 5, by the way. I think this is I bet you could tell a lot of people who haven't played the game in a while that this is a Warframe, and they'd be like, yeah, totally, like sure. Or some people would misremember Saren and think Saba, even though they're not similar at all. But anyway, I like this one for impact. I don't know why. I think that it might be an English speaker thing as well. Like we don't often get this combination of letters. Like the BHA thing is not particularly common in English, and so I guess to me somehow that has some impact. I'm gonna say it's a 3 out of 5 because I can't explain why I like it. So 3 out of 5 for impact. Immersion, it's a 5 out of 5, man. Like I don't know. Quartermaster Sea with the laser targeted immersion name. It's perfect. You can easily imagine like this probably is going to be a Warframe in like 5 years, you know. And then instruction. For assembly, the Warframe is indeed an amalgamation of other frames, like Zaku, of course, in some way, but simply in the way it was created. I think that the lore for this Warframe, we're now essentially developing the Warframe by creating names for it, is more that this Warframe is too much to contain in one vessel, rather than that it is an amalgamation of frames directly. So from a lore perspective, it makes me think if it was put into the game, it would make a lot more sense to think of this Warframe as like the design took inspiration from a bunch of other frames. It's kind of like a Mark II of a bunch of frames, and that was too much power. And they had to chain it down and wrap it in tentacles and chains and stuff, you know. And so an assembly of other frames, appropriate, sure. This is one of those names where it's a little hard because if you know the translation of the word, it's pretty clear like what the association is. Some other Warframes that come to mind are like Gauss, Vauban, Buben, Gara. These are Warframe names that if you know the namesake of the person or what the word is in another language or where it comes from in another language, then it's pretty abundantly clear like what it is. But they're not names like Necros or Volt or Mag, where it's like, okay, the name is literally what the thing is. Like Necros is a necro Warframe. Mag is a mag Warframe, you know. Excalibur, for example, Excalibur is like, okay, yes, that's a term you'd need to know, but it's so commonly understood in English that and so this is a weird one. I'm not sure how to categorize these. I'm going to give this a 3 out of 5 for that. I feel like assembly is still not what I would say as a designer conceptually. To me, that's not like the main takeaway about the Warframe, but it is a reasonably big aspect of their character, and the idea that this is sort of a construction of other Warframe parts is still pretty effectively communicated. And again, I mean, the thing about this, the thing about these name things that's kind of fun is a lot of this stuff, like, it didn't exist until you proposed the name, and then I had to come up with, okay, what is the lore of this Warframe? And so it's not, it's not your fault. Your amalgamated score is 3 out of 5, 5 out of 5, and 3 out of 5, which is 11 out of 5. Pretty good. I think it's great. Again, the immersion just really nails it for me. I can so clearly see this thing being a Warframe in the game. And I think that the big thing I want to say about this name is that the lower-ish scores on impact and immersion don't do anything to ruin my interest in this name. Sorry, the lower scores on impact and instruction, not low, but lower, not perfect. Don't really do anything to make me dislike the name. I think this is the reason I use this kind of improvised but scoring system is because I think it clearly illustrates what makes a good name. You don't have to have everything be perfect. The name needs to really nail one thing, and then it has to not. It needs to be good enough at the other stuff. You know what I mean? And I think that depending on the game, which thing it has to be good enough at, which thing it needs to nail can differ. I'm fine with any of the three. But it's the kind of thing where, like, the immersion doesn't have to be perfect. There are Warframes in the game that I think the immersion is, like, a little weird. I don't know how I feel about, like, Titania, Oberon, Nezha, Wukong, literally just mythological figures, but they're Warframes, is sort of weird. Like, to me, that's a bit tone breaking because, I don't know, it just focuses overly on Earth, makes you think, do they really care that much about that mythology in the Orcan Empire or whatever, I don't know, but I do think that, something or other needs to work. I think, for example, like Grendel is a name where the immersion is a little weird. Grendel comes off in English as, like, kind of a slightly silly word, but the impact of a Warframe named Grendel who has this huge mouth as a stomach, like chef's kiss, so good. And so, of course, like, you gotta pick that one. Come on. And then it does have a sort of vague monster onomatopoeia, so I feel like it does well for instruction as well. Anyway, that's why I'm using this scoring system, and I think this scores very well. Thank you very much, Quartermaster Sea, for your glorious suggestion.